Commander, I wish I could say I had good news, but not all of our battles fared as well as yours. The Greek front is collapsing, and Germany is all but taken. However, not all is lost. Your efforts have hampered Soviet progress in this area. The bridges you destroyed have caused the Soviets to redirect their forces through a certain mountain pass that I believe you are familiar with. They are gambling that you will not be able to stop them a second time. Prove them wrong. Stavros.
Expect a heavy concentration of Soviet armor. The base you established is still standing. Get it up to speed as quickly as possible. We're counting on you to keep the Reds from breaking through.
Welcome back, Commander. You might think something's a little familiar with this level, and that's because it should be.
Ready and waiting.
This is one of the few times, but
Yes, sir.
I can't say how much I love this sort of thing. It's one of the few times that we'll see a mission that starts with the stuff you had in a previous mission. As you can see, we've already got a hefty force of infantry, we've got a nice group of rangers, and everything's already built up for us, so we don't really have to worry about too much. All that being said, if you know about this beforehand, you can kinda cheese it a little bit, because obviously you'd have, you can just decide to build defensive structures where you know you'll need them, and, say, litter the ground with rocket soldiers if you want. You can also try, although on normal difficulty I don't know how effective it would be, but you can always try to rush the enemy base and see how they react. It also helps that if you try to do this sort of strategy, there's nothing that really prevents you, on level 2 that is, from just mining the entire map and building up everything. Obviously, it also means that you'll have to wait out the entire 25 minutes of the timer, but if you're willing to sacrifice your own time to see if you can shorten this level, maybe it's worth it. It's not. But, it's always fun to try stuff like that. So aside from a similar map, with everything already placed on it, there's a couple new things we have. Obviously, there's the War Factory. We've got a nice radar dome and the turrets back. We also see that we have the camo pillbox. The camo pillbox is kind of just a slightly more expensive pillbox. Against AI, I don't feel like it has as much of an impact against how they do anything. Just because the main advantage of a camo pillbox is in the name. It's the camo pillbox. You can see that it mimics the general ground type that we see on the map. So in a temperate map it'd be green, and theoretically if there were desert maps and other different colorations, it would mimic those.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unfortunately, it doesn't pull the color straight from the tile, so depending on where you place it, it'll either stick out or can be pretty well hidden. Like, say, behind a tree or two.
Ready and waiting. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
And this is why attacking the enemy base right off the bat won't ever work out. Now, I did just come off of playing all 3 of the last missions in the Allied campaign again because audio shenanigans. Apparently OBS just decided to not recognize my audio ports anymore. Anyways, I've lost a ton of footage. But the main point is that I kind of already saved over a bunch of stuff, so I had to use some default saves that I mentioned, I believe, in the second video. Regardless, it seems that the default saves I have are all on easy. And I know this because I could see that all the costs were different, and boy howdy, the gameplay is a lot slower than this. And I mean like a lot slower than this. There's really no point to playing this game on like anything but normal, if you ask me. Especially with the way, like, how sluggish everything was, but we'll see it way in the future. The main point I'm trying to bring across is that the missions, despite being on the exact same maps, the difficulties offered at least some different variations. In general, the rules.ini page, and I believe just like manuals and such, will tell you that the AI has, it's just not as smart, quote unquote. The groups it'll send out to attack aren't as strong. It doesn't build as efficiently or as quickly. So these sorts of things add up. You wouldn't think so, but you kind of, if you look at like attacks that come from an AI source versus on normal, and I can't imagine hard, versus an easy profile, it's clear to see, like, it's night and day.
Affirmative. Awaiting affirmative.
So I kind of wonder if on the easy version of this map, if the flamethrower defensive structures would be there.
Yes, sir.
Maybe not, but honestly,
Awaiting order.
I feel confident in saying that they would be. Just as like a static defense that they would have no matter what.
Vehicle acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting.
Anyways, the War Factory gives us the nice little
Ready and packed.
light tank. It's kind of similar to the light tank that we saw the Nod use in Tiberian Dawn,
Awaiting orders. Affirmative.
except it's worse in this game. Sure, it's still a fast tank. Sure, it's still cheap.
Affirmative.
However, the Soviets have what we've seen to be a twin-barreled tank. That's incredibly powerful against any sort of hard target, which the light tank is.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
So you're kind of always at a disadvantage if you only have light tanks versus the Soviet heavy tank.
Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
There is one item in our tables of equipment that can help us out, which is the mine layer.
Ready and waiting.
Now, to be perfectly honest, the Soviet forces also have a mine layer. However, there's one major difference. The Allied mine layer drops anti-tank mines, and the Soviet mine layer drops anti-personnel mines. It's kind of self-explanatory as to what they do. But it's interesting to note that
Affirmative. Awaiting orders.
both hold 5 mines, and if you ever want to replenish that source, unlike, say, Vultures in StarCraft, where as soon as you drop your mines, that's it,
Yes, sir.
all you have to do is send a vehicle over to the repair depot, and it's automatically refilled.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Now, the downside is that your mine layer is, well, has no guns whatsoever,
Affirmative.
is not particularly fast, but on roads they do rather well, and, well, they're not very heavily armored.
Vehicle.
And the HP pool is low, but whatever.
Yes, sir. Vehicle.
Honestly, there's only like 2 real ways to use them, and that's one, if there's nothing coming your way, because the time it takes to set up mines and so on, it just takes a while.
Acknowledged.
So you either have to hope that nobody's going to come your way and do anything, or you kind of have to be a jerk and infiltrate the enemy base and try to do something that way.
Yes, sir. Acknowledge.
I will say, though, that for all of the lack of use I'll ever get from mine layers, they do come in handy in 2 levels. I can't recall if I include this one in that judgment or not. But, you know, AP mines are really good against heavy tanks, and the same kind of applies to any other vehicle.
Yes, sir.
Like, say, an ore truck.
Affirmative. Lost. Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Oh, and if it wasn't enough that the Soviets have entrenched themselves, and they already have a base up in play,
Affirmative.
they also have a nasty habit of getting a bunch of reinforcements to show up for them.
Affirmative. Acknowledge. 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 Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledge.
This sometimes ends up being a more popular strategy of mine. I know I'm going to lose the light tanks. They're not that great. Again, I've mentioned them several times. However, you can produce them in numbers, and if you know you're going to get rid of them, there's nothing stopping you for a mad dash against their construction yard.
Acknowledge. Affirmative. Report acknowledge. Yes, sir. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Yes, sir. Agree. Yes, affirmative.
At least with the construction yard down, it just means that as long as I can rebuild my forces, which shouldn't be too hard, then any loss they take in terms of buildings is pretty much done. And unfortunately, pathfinding still isn't the greatest. Thankfully, you won't see like too many issues like we saw with Tiberian Dawn, but the odd misstep occurs every once in a while.
Yes, sir. Agree. Yes, sir. Ready and waiting.
I'm also not sure if the harvesters have an upgrade to their pathfinding, like how they refine Tiberium, how they refine gold and like valuable minerals. Gems is basically the only other type. Because I don't know, it seems strange to me. I always feel like the ore trucks that I have don't always go for the closest source. It should also be pointed out that you can't plant mines on the actual gold. You can only lay mines on clear ground. But again, if you manage to infiltrate their sort of resource point, what's to stop you from maybe sneaking in a kill here or there?
Reporting. Yes, sir. F1. Waiting orders. Reporting. Acknowledged. Waiting order. Very close. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. F1. Yes, sir. Of course. Waiting orders. Ready and F1. Yes, sir.
Now, the AI is having some pathfinding issues of its own right there. They shouldn't have had any trouble, but because I blocked them and they had nowhere else to go in terms of a short way to go anywhere,
Affirmative.
they kind of just went around, or tried going around anyways.
Agree. Very well. Affirmative.
Oh, and that issue with the ore trucks is super rare, so I kind of just got unlucky. It happens once in a while where an ore truck just decides it doesn't want to move anymore.
Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir. Reporting. Affirmative. Waiting order. Agree. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Reporting. Reporting.
I didn't really do a good job showing it off, and honestly we'll probably get to it in later levels.
Awaiting orders.
But regardless of the type of mine, in our case, AT mines, as long as you can put any sort of attack on a hex or cell or whatever they're called with a mine in it, it'll blow up the mine.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir. Reporting. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
That's why sometimes it feels like the investment just isn't really worth it, despite all the advantages that, say, anti-tank mines really give you.
Reporting. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Agreed. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Reporting.
I think it's also important to note that the AI is
Affirmative.
toned down on its grindhouse ways. They just don't go to crush and flatten your entire infantry force as much. And to be honest, that's not a complaint, it's just an observation.
Yes, sir. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Acknowledge. Reporting. Agreed. Yes, sir. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Unit ready. Building.
Awaiting orders. Yes, sir. Acknowledge.
At this point, I've already shown the Tanya rules.ini file
Yes, sir. Awaiting.
data.
Affirmative.
It should be noted that a medic can heal 50 points of strength. So
Yes, sir.
Tanya is one of those characters, one of the very few characters actually, that doesn't actually get healed completely from a medic. Unless I'm mistaken and the medic is 100, but I'm fairly certain it's 50.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Awaiting. Affirmative. Reporting. Awaiting order. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Building.
Yes, sir. Reporting. Yes, sir.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready.
Sir, sir. Acknowledge. Yes, sir. No. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Affirmative. Reporting. Affirmative. Reporting. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Unit lost.
It's so nice to see the AI just sell all its stuff.
Waiting order.
Building.
No longer do you have to wait 10 minutes for
Ready and waiting.
the time to destroy every building they have, and then every infantry that spawns out of those buildings, and you get the drill. Also, somehow the ore truck can't crush one of my rocket soldiers. It's another weird, like very weird glitch that I don't think I've ever have happened to me again.
Yes, sir.
Building. Unit ready.
Honestly, maybe I should have just tried to duel the AI and sell all my stuff and then just meet him in the middle.
Waiting orders. Be acknowledged. Yes,
Our
sir.
base is under attack.
Waiting. Affirmative.
Unit
Yes, sir.
ready.
Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Reporting. Vehicle. Reporting. Acknowledge. Yes, sir. Acknowledge. Vehicle. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Mission accomplished.